Hey everybody, it's GauntletX, and welcome back to another premiere draft of Dominaria United. This is going to be some more flashback draft nonsense going on through the weeks leading up to Duskmorn, and this is a really sweet set. This is actually one of my favorites. It's got a lot of really cool stuff going for it. Pretty much every two-color pair is pretty viable, although the green two-color pairs tend to become domain mush, but domain's a really fun mechanic going on in the set, with so much good mana fixing. There's just a lot of really cool stuff about it. So without further ado, let's just hop back into the format with our pack 1 pick 1, which is pretty easily the Aether Channeler. This is a great flexible blue rare, fits into any blue deck, and it's going to do some awesome stuff. It's going to give us a 1/1 flying bird, or bounce one of our opponent's non-land permanents, or draw a card. Any of those three options is a great deal, and being able to have whatever you need for the position you're in definitely adds to the card's viability quite a bit. For pack 1 pick 2, we've got a really sweet signpost uncommon I'm interested in trying to build around. We've got Balmor, Battle Mage Captain, incredible card for the blue-red archetype in the format, which is all about casting a bunch of instants and sorcery spells. It's a pretty aggressive, pretty tempo-based deck, where you try to get some good, efficient, ideally evasive threats on the board early, and then you cast a bunch of counter spells and burn spells and stuff to clear a path for them and try to kill your opponent before they resolve anything too big. So Balmor, pretty great follow-up to the Aether Channeler, and I'm certainly happy to try to go in that direction if it ends up being open. There are certainly other options. Impulse is a fantastic instant speed card draw spell, so we can just stick to mono blue for now and choose our second color later. You can also take these dual lands quite highly in the format. Not only are they dual lands to help you fix in a format where there's a lot of good multicolored stuff going on, but they have two different basic land types, which helps a lot with the domain mechanic if you want to do any shenanigans with that. So, some great viable options there, but I'm going to try to jump on that Balmor, and we've got a real good start to that stuff because we've got another blue-red uncommon, and this one is also great. Battlewing Mystic here, 2 mana for a 2/1 flyer, already a good evasive threat, but if you draw it later in the game where you don't have any cards left in your hand, then you can kick it to draw a couple cards. Now there's a downside, of course, discarding your hand first, but you can just make sure to kick it only when that ability is actually going to be good for you. So happy to take Battlewing Mystic here, but there's, again, tons of really great cards. We could take the on-color dual land. That would be somewhat reasonable, although I do think we just got to take Mystic over that. And then if you're just not a fan of blue-red or blue in general, there's some really good domain options like Sunbathing Root Walla, Terra Sunder for great removal, and if you like black a lot in the format, Night of Dusk's Shadow is a very efficient threat there. Pick number 4. This is looking like a pretty solid draft pod for blue-red. We do see Najal the Stormrunner. This is the weakest of the blue-red uncommons, but if we take it, then we have one of each. We've got the Mystic and the Balmor and the Najal. I guess there is like a burn spell also with a blue kicker, so I guess technically we have most of the blue-red uncommons if we take this. Pretty fun one, but doesn't do anything until you get an attack off with it, so there's definitely a pretty large window of opportunity for your opponent to blow it up before it does anything particularly good. And that is why it's not quite as good as like the Mystic and Balmor, because these are just more efficient cards. Your opponent needs some real cheap removal to stop them from doing their thing, but Najal's still probably better than like a Combat Research or a Keldon Strike team here. Pick number 5, there's that Molten Tributary again for an on-color dual land. Pretty high pickup. There's also Phyrexian Espionage, and with the dual lands in pretty much every pack in the format, we could find a few to help kick this. This is a pretty great deal on either half in this set. So I think Espionage or Tributary are both very reasonable picks, but I will go for that Tributary for just perfectly on-color fixing here. Pick number 6, there is a Gitu Amplifier, perfectly fine card for this kind of deck. We could also take a Contaminated Aquifer to help splash in some black kicker effects like Phyrexian Espionage, or we can just take the Espionage itself. I think all three of these are pretty reasonable choices, just because Amplifier's not that great. But I think it's solid enough in the archetype. We can try to stick just pure blue-red for now. So for pick 7, Thrill of Possibility is reasonable in this archetype. It's pretty bad in almost every other deck, but when you have a lot of cards like the Amplifiers and the Balmors and the Jals triggering when you're casting spells, Thrill Possibility goes up quite a bit in value. We can also take the Ridgeline, random off-color duel. If you're in any green deck, I would actually take half off-color duels really highly because green has the most powerful domain stuff that wants you to have random off-color basic land types. But if you're just like a blue-red deck here, you can ignore them unless they're like a pretty important color for some random off-color kicker or some splash or something. So like for pick 8 here, because Viashino Branch Rider and Pixie Illusionist are just not going to be exciting for this deck, we can go ahead and take a Geothermal Bog to help us kick any Phyrexian Espionages we manage to pick up, or we could take an Idyllic Beachfront to help us kick any Tolarian Geysers we randomly pick up. But I'm going to go for the Geothermal Bog. I think the Phyrexian Espionages kicker is one of the more important ones. For pick 9, here is a Shore Up, which goes excellently in this deck. This is a massive combat trick on any creatures that trigger whenever you cast an instant or sorcery. So cards like Balmor buffing your whole board, cards like the Amplifier buffing itself a bunch, you're turning your Shore Up into a way to protect your card from removal and deal an additional like 4 damage to your opponent. Pick 10, Impulse. Super excited about this. This was potentially our pick 2, honestly, because it is just that good. In blue, that instant speed card selection makes it a lot easier to hold up counter spells and stuff. This is just going to be premium stuff for this deck. Haunting Figment is okay in this archetype, but I'm honestly never concerned whether or not I have any copies of that card. And now we can wheel some of these Phyrexian Espionages. We already have the 1 Geothermal Bog towards that. And again, just hard casting it without kicking it is still an okay deal. So we'll certainly run it for now. Pick 12. Could take the Islet just in case we want to splash green. But I'll take the Combat Research. This card is perfectly serviceable with enough evasive threats, flyers, and unblockable creatures to make sure you're drawing the cards off of this. Here's a Mana Worker, which can randomly help us kick that Phyrexian Espionage. And here's the second Espionage. Pretty happy with how pack 1 has gone for us, and that's going to let us just be in a nice, simple position here to just stick to blue-red spells. So for pack 2, pick 1, we haven't opened up anything good. We have 0 removal right now, so we can play the very filler Jaya's Firenado, or we can up our creature count here with a Haunting Figment or a Hurler Cyclops. Certainly not a great deck for the Cyclops. You don't tend to run a ton of creatures in these blue-red decks. You just run like 10 pretty important ones, ideally mostly pretty low on the mana curve. So not a great deck for Cyclops. This wants a lot of creatures and tokens and stuff. I'm just going to take the really filler removal to make sure I have at least a little bit of that going. Pack 2, pick 2 is actually a pretty excellent pack for us. There's a couple really good options. The Essence Scatter card synergizes really well with cards like Impulse and Thrill of Possibility. Instant speed card draw spells, so if your opponent doesn't cast an important creature, you're still doing something with your mana. You're not just losing out on tempo that way. And the counter spells play really well in this format. There's just a lot of great creatures with good enter the battlefield effects, so countering them before any of that resolves, it's pretty excellent. Now the other thing that's great about this pack is we do have a Temporal Firestorm, which can be a one-sided board wipe. We blow everything up, but we also kick this to save one of our cards by phasing it out. We could grab some random white sources to splash in the white kick as well. I think I will go for Firestorm. 7 mana is kind of a lot for the blue-red archetype, but can definitely be worth it if you're going to blow up everything except one of your own creatures. Makes the card pretty good. Speaking of pretty good cards, now we have Tolarian Geyser. Excellent tempo play, especially against the big splashy green domain decks that end up dropping 5 and 6 mana creatures on you. You're just like, all right, put that back in your hand, and I'm going to draw a card. So that's pretty excellent. Timely Interference is also great in these blue-red decks. Joint Exploration's perfectly fine, makes your counterspells better, just more instant speed card draw. And the Amplifier's fine too. Pretty beautiful pack for us, but Tolarian Geyser is a super great way to clear a path. Excellent tempo play. Pick number 4, Tolarian Terror, one of the best finishers for this deck. You're going to be running a ton of instants and sorceries, so this can easily be like 4 or less mana for a 5/5 with Ward 2. Makes it very expensive to kill that with any removal spells. Beautiful, beautiful card. It is competing a little bit with a Tributary, but it certainly wins that fight in a 2-color deck. Pick number 5. There's another Shore Up. There's another Phyrexian Espionage. There's a Wrath. I do like the blue-white deck a lot here in this format, but I think I'm pretty tied to red. I mean, as far as good red, we have Firestorm and Balmor. The rest of our red is pretty filler, so I suppose there is that possibility of a pivot to blue-white. It's unlikely, but if we take Protect the Negotiators, we still get to play this in blue-red as a somewhat mediocre counterspell, and if we're in blue-white, it's an incredible one, spinning a creature on the board and countering something. Alright, yeah, this is decisions here. We take another Protect the Negotiators, try to solidify ourselves into blue-white specifically, or we just take Fires of Victory, which is an excellent blue-red card. It's a removal spell that also draws you a card, so it's a 2-for-1. I think I just take Fires here. It's just going to be so much simpler when we already have a baseline amount of red playables no matter what, so I'll take Fires of Victory here. Those cards both pretty on par. They're both 2-for-1s. This is a 2-for-1 removal spell. This is a 2-for-1 counter spell. Another Tolarian Terror is beautiful. Blue's looking just wide open. We could have been blue-white or blue-red and really happy here. Pick 8. There's also Protect the Negotiators again. But it's looking like we're going to be splashing in the white kicker for the card, where it's just going to be okay, whereas Micromancer is an excellent value play. Just cast this and grab a Shore Up. Just 4 mana, 3/3 draw a card is a good deal. Pick 9, now we start filling our deck up with some Figments for our early threats. And I am very happy with this draft. Deck is looking super fun. And I didn't start the format immediately playing Domain Soup, which is good because that's probably one of my worst habits in this format. One of the things that makes it a little less interesting to watch for anybody watching me draft the set is that I really love the green-based, just 5-color, just play everything, take all the lands decks. So I do end up playing the same kind of deck quite often in the set. So nice to start with an actual streamlined 2-color archetype, because those are 100% viable in the format as well. So we're not diving headfirst in the 5-color mush pile. Ooh, pick 13 Shore Up. That is a beautiful card for this deck. In pack 3, what do you have for us? We've got another Essence Scatter. I'm pretty happy to take that, even over an Urtai's Scorn. I think creature spells are just the most important kind of spells to counter already, and the fact that it's 2 mana instead of 3 is actually quite a big difference, because pretty much all of the instant speed card draw is also 2 mana. So being able to only have to hold up 2 instead of 3 is kind of a big deal. So I'm going to take Essence Scatter over Urtai's Scorn. I think the Scatter's a little better than Scorn, but the Scorn's playable too. I guess we could also take Flowstone Infusion. Actually, we're low enough on removal that seems legit. I basically have 1 Fires of Victory and then counter spells and a board wipe. I actually kind of think I have to take Infusion here, just to blow up 2 toughness or less creatures. You can also use it as a combat trick sometimes. That works fine. Pack 3, pick 2, pretty weak pack. We can take an Idyllic Beachfront here, so that on rare occasion we can kick our Protect the Negotiators. That would be fine. But we can also take the Talus Lookout, a great evasive threat that replaces itself with another card when it dies. Pick your best card in your top 2, put it in your hand. I think Lookout's good enough to take over the Beachfronts. Although I don't think I'm getting this Beachfront back. It does feel like a pod where there's a lot of soupy, multicolored decks getting drafted. Pack 3, pick 3, Slam Dunk a Battlewing Mystic. Join the party, my cheap flying threat. Right. Tolarian Terror number 3 versus Flowstone Infusion number 2. I go low on removal, because Terror is a terrifying card with a high instant sorcery count. These things are just an absolute beat stick. Pack 3, pick 5. I am not a particularly big fan of any of these cards. Goblin Picker can sort through any mana flood. Founding the third path can be cute if you are lucky. Yeah, like you have the spell to go for it, and then the recast. I guess founding the third path makes the most sense here. Maybe the Goblin Picker, but I feel like these are going to get cut because we just have so many good on-color playables. We're already at like 29 non-land cards and we only need 23 or 24. Pick 6. Not that into a third Phyrexian Espionage, so we take a Flowstone Kavu or a Rona's Vortex. This is 1 mana to bounce a creature planeswalker no matter what. Pretty efficient for a tempo-based aggressive deck like this. And if we do have the kicker, then this card's incredible. Just put your opponent's best permanent on bottom of their library. Yeah, and being able to tutor that off of the Micromancer is also pretty huge. Now Micromancer can pick up a shore up, or if we've got the black source and we need removal, grab that Vortex and be really happy. Another Impulse, real happy to see that. Pick 8. Pick 9, Essence Scatter came all the way around. That is beautiful. I am taking it over the ability to kick our Protect the Negotiators, but I think Essence Scatter is a very good card in this format, so we're grabbing it. Especially since our deck has multiple ways to bounce something. That does make the Essence Scatter even better. Like if it's turn 5 and I can Aether Channeler their best card, and then just scatter it next turn. Or if we have 7 mana on board, we can bounce something with the Amplifier, and then counter it next turn. Pick 11. Ooh, that's not right. Bortuk Bone Rattle is like a mythic. Not a mythic. It's like a rare. It's like a bomb rare power level in the green multicolored soupy decks. I'll let somebody have it. I'm not going to play anything in that pack, though. But yeah, Bortuk Bone Rattle is an incredible card in the green domain decks, and I am sure we'll be showing that off sometime this week. Showing off the Bone Rattle specifically. Honestly, it's cards like Bortuk Bone Rattle that make Essence Scatter so good in this format. Because if that thing hits the board, like, you're so far behind. They have a 4/4 and their biggest creature from their graveyard gets reanimated at the same time. It's a huge swing in the board state. So let's go ahead and sort our non-creature spells and our creatures by when we're actually casting them. So like Battlewing Mystic, maybe more of a 3-drop, so we can actually kick it. But at that point, we don't want to play it till we've already played everything else, so it's kind of at the very end of the curve, ideally. These Tolarian Terrors are hopefully going to be like 4 or less mana most of the time. Slap them right here. Mana Worker, I've got a lot of off-color kickers, so probably does make the cut. And then, let's see, not so sure about Combat Research. Rona's Vortex, ideally a 4-drop. Hopefully we hit the Bog or the Mana Worker. But I guess we don't have enough fixing for that to be the most consistent way to play it. Most of the time it's just a 1-drop. Timely Interference is fine at 1 mana. Shorp's fine at 1 mana. Okay, don't know about the Founding the Third Path. Protect, again, ideally a 3-drop, but we only have 1 Mana Worker, so we treat it as a 2-mana counter. But Fires of Victory we are always going to kick pretty much no matter what. And then a Firestorm we could play at 5 mana. So, alright, I need to cut 12 cards. Oh boy. Alright, so honestly, being a triple Tolarian Terror deck, and a deck that has this much good card advantage, draw 2s in the late game, making this a 3-for-1. Draw 2s, or sometimes even kicking this as a 3-for-1. I think we actually just make a really good argument for being a more control-based deck, where we just sit here and do scatters, impulses, maybe some Flowstone infusions, and vortexes to slow our opponent down in the early game, and then just slam terrors down later. So play a big War of Attrition, grindy game. Very controlling version of blue-red. We even have the board wipe with the Temporal Firestorm that obviously plays super, super well towards a more controlling game plan. So considering Another one of the things is that our cheap threats are like some of our more filler cards like Haunting Figments and stuff that only have like one toughness, so they just die to a light breeze. Means I think we're gonna go like really low on creature count and go super controlling here. Which isn't exactly what you usually see from blue-red, but it's certainly a way to build the blue decks in the format for sure. And we're much more just like a good blue deck than specifically a good blue-red deck. I think Balmore's still good enough even without a wide board of creatures to buff with to play here. So yeah, we're going to go pretty creature light. This is just going to be an example of a good blue-based control deck for the format. We probably cut the Protect the Negotiators with the slower creature counts and cutting the Mana Worker to not have the white source in the deck. Cut the Combat Researchers with the lower creature count as well. Still need to cut 3 cards. Shore Up also gets weaker the less creatures we have, although I do still think a copy or 2 would play perfectly fine because they're very good at protecting Tolarian Terrors. Your opponent has to spend so much mana and then even pay for the ward, and then, oops, too bad. Nice job paying for the ward, but I'm just going to give it hexproof anyway. So I don't want to cut all these, but cutting 1 or 2 would be fine. I'm going to go 2 copies of Shore Up here. That still might be too many, but I really like the card, so I'm going to go for a lot of them. Thrill of Possibility as a cut is fine. We have 2 Impulses and an Espionage still. We have Tolarian Geyser being a cantrip. Timely Interference is a cantrip. Cantrip, of course, referring to a card that just replaces itself. It immediately draws a card when you play it. So a card like Fires of Victory is also a cantrip. You cast it, you draw the next card. The Battling Mystics are also draw 2s. Yeah, we don't need the dedicated Thrill of Possibility. And then honestly, even with these technically 7 drops, we can certainly cut a land in this deck because these are going to be much cheaper with all these instants and sorceries in grave. We do still have like a 7-drop Firestorm, 5 mana Fire NATO, so I don't want to cut too many lands here, but I think cutting 1 land is perfectly reasonable. So we'll go for a 16 lander, probably cutting a red source. Oh yeah, 20 blue cards and 5 red. The only issue with cutting a red source here is that temporal Firestorm, but we don't want to cast it till super late in the game anyway, so don't need that double red for quite some time. And we still have 7 red sources, which is perfectly reasonable. Yeah, so great example of a blue-based controlling build for the format. Not the best example of blue-red in particular, usually a little more creature heavy, usually a lot more burn spells and stuff, but it does feel like we were fighting over the red, but the blue for certain in this draft pod was wide open. Had I been completely omniscient, I know exactly what was coming throughout the draft, we certainly would have went headfirst into blue-white. That looked like the better blue-based control archetype to be building out of this draft pod, but even blue-black probably would have ended up a little stronger than this deck. Just kind of held on to Balmore probably a little too hard, just because I like the card a lot. But again, really happy that we ended up in blue and we just stuck there, because blue was wide open. So looks like a very, very solid showing of what blue can do in the format. Hopefully we'll be able to play it out pretty well, get a decent record, but we'll find out soon enough as we head into the gameplay. All right, here we are on the play for game number 1. We've got a pretty clear path to victory, and that is hope they overextend and blow up the whole board. Get a nice little 3-for-1 maybe, blowing up 3 of their cards and none of our own. We'll see. We've already got the double red set up. If they have anything that's going to be too aggressive or have a really good enter the battlefield or anything like that, we can scatter it pre-Firestorm. And then post-Firestorm, we'll still have a Fire NATO for the next threat. And if the game goes really slow, we could just run the Lookout onto the board, because if we wait until 7 mana, we can protect our own Lookout here. Okay, there's a Phyrexian Espionage. I could play it out slow here and wait to kick that, but I'm pretty sure I'm just using that right now, just leading towards the Firestorm. The double terror we've drawn into is definitely going to be real gross post-board wipe. Our opponent is a green deck, which is almost always doing at least some splashy domain nonsense. But they could just be the dedicated green-white aggro deck, making a wide board state of stuff. Alright, well, I haven't drawn land 5, and land 5 is super important here. But they've also only played one creature for now, so we could just drop out the Lookout. I could also Timely, and I have an Essence Scatter up. Something weird happens. I think I'm just going to Timely. It's going to make the Terrors cheaper. Should be good. Take one less damage this turn, draw a card. Alright. Triple Dominarian Terror. Uh-oh. Well, I did need land 5. Well, I have 3 Tolarian Terrors to win the game post-board wipe, and if Lookout dies, it draws me a card anyway. So by playing the Lookout here and then trading it off on blocks or having it get killed by something, we get to dig again for land number 5, and we don't even end up down a card if I end up having to blow it up with my own board wipe, because it'll just give me a card back. Alright, Argivian Phalanx, that buffs the Griffin Protector. Definitely go for the chump here to guarantee that 5th lands, and then we blow everybody up. And there it is. Beautiful. Say goodbye to the board. And then these terrors are going to be real cheap. It's going to be super easy to get a bigger board than our opponent. No plays at all. Interesting. Bunch of removal in their hand or something here. I got no shore-ups in the hand. Vortex can't target my own card. Yeah, if they've got a removal for a terror, they do get to kill it here. I have 2 different ways to kill something if they resolve something through one of these scatters. I've got Vortex and Fire Nado. Vortex shoving something on the bottom, Fire Nado just blowing it up. So I'm okay with tapping out of the Essence Scatter. I even have the Tolarian Geyser to bounce it to hand and then hold up Scatter after that. Alright, well, now I get to play a Terror and hold up an Essence Scatter. Three Serpents and a Dream should be nice and easy. Yeah, I don't know what 6 cards were in their hands. Maybe they are a splashy green deck and it's a bunch of off-color stuff. Or just an extreme amount of flood, but I think they missed at least 1 land drop. Because I know I missed a few there and they still only played 6 lands by then. I don't know. Strange stuff. A lot of cards in their hand, but apparently nothing good. And we start things off 1-0, heading into game number 2. Here we are for game 2. Maybe get to play a little more of that blue-red tempo kind of game plan here, resolving a nice, efficient threat, and then keeping that board clear, slowing them down with bounce and burn. This might be a little more of a classic blue-red game. Top things off with that Tolarian Terror in the end game. White-black, love that archetype. It plays super well against the domain decks. It also plays pretty decently against blue-red, because one of the best cards, one of the best commons for that deck is a 2-mana 3/1 that they can kick for a black to have each player sack a creature. So that plays really well against the domain decks when they resolve like a big expensive threat in the late game, but it also plays well against the blue-red decks because these decks usually only have like 1 or 2 creatures on board, and the shore up, one of the best ways to protect their creatures, doesn't do anything against something that makes me sack something. So there's Elas Il-Kor. back again. Well, we do the blue-red tempo thing and we continue to be annoying. Put that back. Got more than enough card advantage in the hand between Phyrexian Espionage and Fires of Victory, especially when I can kick the Espionage. So, not worried about drawing a card or getting a bird off the channeler. We're just going to keep slowing them down. And it's time for some victory. Unless they have a shore up. They do have blue. Very strange circumstance here, where they went Plains, Swamp, Mountain, Island. So I guess they are a 5-color domain soup, which is a very strange spot to put a 2-drop black-white card. But maybe the mountain and the island are like the splashes here, and they're black-white at the core. I don't know. Strange stuff right now. We can Impulse here, trample over for a good chunk of damage. See if I can find a path to clear that soldier out of here. If I hit a +2/-2 spell, or if I hit the -1/-0 draw card spell, this Impulse could be fantastic. Ooh, I could also hit a second Tolarian Terror, which if they don't kill Balmor is going to be absurd. But I already have the first Terror I can just play this turn. Even if I shore up, I can play the first Terror this turn. Battlewing Mystic, but I already have the Espionage for the card draw next turn. I guess I take shore up. Should be 4 now, yes. So then I get to cast the shore up and then still cast the Tolarian Terror as well. Cool. So shore up makes the Terror cheaper. So I can do both these things and they're at a super low life total. They do have the opportunity to kill Balmor here since I did spend the shore up, but they're at 5 life and we've got a 5/5 on board if they don't kill that. Force some chumps for a little while we start working on the card advantage angle. So they dropped a Valiant Veteran to buff everybody. I mean, I feel like I Espionage unkicked so that I have the mana up to cast whatever I draw off these. But yeah, we just give the whole board trample and it should be super unlikely they survive here. Should do this. I think still have double red up. Oh boy. Wow. I can cast all of these. They're so dead. This is like insanely lethal. That's going to reduce the toughness on their board by 3. This is already well overkill. Yeah. So we declare the attack, and if anything else happens, we've got 2 more spells for even more. Yeah, that was definitely what blue-red usually does. Actually having the Balmor hit the board and keep chipping in for damage while you're casting all your controlling stuff. So again, that's not going to happen in this deck too often, but that is the blue-red game plan. Resolve the Balmor first, and the Channeler, that kind of stuff, and then just do everything. So cool to get to see at least one game of that, even if most of the games are probably going to end up a little closer to how game 1 went. We are 2-0 now, heading into game 3. Here we are now for game 3 on the draw. Certainly keepable. We've got a counter spell and a burn spell, hopefully waiting for that so we can kick it and get the card back out of it. Playing against black-red, pretty aggressive deck, but the Sprouting Goblin from our opponent pretty much guarantees that they are also green, so they are probably more domain soupy than actually black-red. Because Sprouting Goblin, incredible when kicked, pretty mediocre when not. So generally wouldn't play it unless you at least have some green dual lands or something. Gibbering Barricade. 2/4. Basically every time I use a removal spell on something, if they have enough mana up, they can draw the cards. I've got enough enough flying threats in this deck to just fly past that thing, though, and the sack ability is not going to matter for quite some time, so I think I'm just going to let it resolve here, and if it becomes a problem, we can, like, Fires of Victory it. But I am assuming we're just going to, like, Talus Lookout here, most likely. Try to win off of that. Need another blue source, but I can wait on the lookouts till I have a shore up. But I'm just going to be mana efficient, because again, if this thing dies, it just replaces itself, and it's super fine. Unless they exile it specifically. Alright, not a great spot for our opponent if they have to just sack a barricade to draw a card. Just not drawing any actual threats here. I'm not going to cast a Tolarian Terror till I can hold up a shore up alongside that. Because I've got great instants to hold up right now. Four damage from the Steel Crusher, go to 14. Writhing Necromass, big old 5/5 Death Touch. Well, that is our Fires of Victory target then. Easier to hold up an Essence Scatter than a Fires of Victory for a future threat, so we're going to use the 5 mana removal here, and now I've got the mana to play the Terror and hold up an Essence Scatter. If they cast a good threat, or if they try to kill something, we've got the shore up, and the game's looking pretty on lock here. Not only that, but we're super ahead in card advantage. We've got the 3-for-1 Espionage yet again. We've been really lucky on the Geothermal Bog draws. That's going to be an absolute blowout. They were planning on that being a removal spell as well, thanks to Gibbering Barricade. And then they were going to get to draw 2, because they draw 1 off Barricade and 1 off our Lookout's ability, so just kind of ruined that for our opponent. I probably should have espionaged pre-combat, since we do get to make them discard the last card in their hand. I guess they could have responded with a barricade block, but then... with a barricade ability, but then they would have had to do that pre-blocks. So, yeah, we should have pre-combated an espionage there. Yeah, I get it, Arena. Yeah, I genuinely don't see how we possibly lose from here. With a Scatter Up, a Firestorm, with the ability to kick it. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, that is 3-0. I'm going to go ahead and reboot Arena between these games, so it stops getting angry at me. And yeah, we'll just hopefully continue this incredible undefeated run as we head into game number 4. All right, here we are on the play now for game 4. Just hold up that Vortex in case they play the greatest 1-drop ever printed or something. Just might as well have the mana up for the spells we can actually cast. Balmor, that's pretty good. That might be good enough to just blow up before they have shore up mana, even though I don't get to draw the card here. Yeah, I think that's actually fine, because the card is great. Okay, just working our way towards the Tolarian Terror. Rada's Firebrand, that's another good card. If I Vortex that, I get to play Terror next turn, so I'm going to do that. Even if they shore up, it's fine. They don't counter removal. Seems quite likely they have a shore up in hand with that play. Oh, I don't get to play Terror this turn. I'm dumb. I can't math. Hello, Firestorm. Well, that's going to change things. Well, that's 6 out of 7 lands. I could still go for the Terror. Yeah, they've got Essence Scatter up now, though. They're probably never not going to have Essence Scatter up, because most of the creatures in these decks are quite cheap. I mean, if they scatter me, then I don't have to kick Firestorm later. They're definitely going to have the mana for Scatter up post Firestorm. Because at that point, they'll just be out of other stuff. Sure. Okay. Interesting. A lot of thinking for not having an Essence Scatter. So they probably do, and they just have an alternate way to kill the Tolarian Terror that they'd rather use. Oh, they had Protect the Negotiators, but they did not have enough creatures on board to use it, so they just discarded it here. Fair. That was what that was all about. This is 6 mana for +2/+2, but it's cheaper for the domain, so it would just be a trade. They have domain 3, so they can do that for a red and 3. They can do it for 4 mana, and they'd still have 1 up for their own shore up that we're pretty confident they have. So if I block and then shore up post Firebrand, they just use their own shore up, and it's not exactly good, so I'm just not going to block. It's actually a red and 2. I continue being bad at numbers. Okay. Yeah, at 7 mana we're going to Firestorm, and after that we'll Mystic to get ahead on cards. So for now we're just racing poorly. Because they were the first one to hit for 5, so we'll die 1 turn before them at this rate. It's an Impulse. There's a Balmor. We are really hoping that they only have like Essence Scatters, so that they can't counter a Temporal Firestorm here. I could shore up the Terror to soak up enough of their mana that they can't counter a Firestorm. Because then they have to spend some mana using removal on Terror, or spend 3 mana on Firebrand, and like 1 on their own shore up. So we can like completely tap them out here to kill Firebrand. And then Firestorm the Balmor, but that is still just Firestorm in 1 card. Oh. Yeah, they don't use the abilities, so they're definitely holding something up. But Essence Scatter is much more common than something that could counter Firestorm. I suppose another line here to play around a second copy of Protect the Negotiators would be to shore up the Terror so it's big enough to survive Firestorm rather than kicking. But if they had Protect the Negotiators, that would still work. Because we would still Firestorm with 2 up, they'd Protect the Negotiators for 3 because they have the white mana to kick it. Yikes. Yeah, I guess maybe I should have just done the shore up nonsense. Just doesn't feel profitable. I guess I can give it another turn. But now they have Balmor for the trample too. Gonna take a lot of damage for this. We just gotta hope it's not lethal and it gets them to tap out enough to resolve the Firestorm. They have to buff Firebrand and do some kind of spell here. but it can be any spell thanks to Balmor. Lightning strike the face. Sure. Yes! Oh my god, yes. That's what we like to see, baby. And now we're ahead on cards, and we're only down 3 points in life total. Gonna be very far ahead in cards soon. Okay, that amplifier could be doing a lot of damage, but a 2-1 blocker is more than enough to stop it. We gotta just say goodbye to shore up here. Probably, because I think I'd rather get the bird than bouncing that. And I don't want to draw the card and then just discard it to Mystic. Goodbye, shore up. Unless they respond to the Mystic kicker. Oh, cool. A timely is actually somewhat useful, potentially. Worst case scenario cycles away. Still got 2 Tolarian Terrors we can draw into, probably our best draws. But already got a solid board here. Thrill of Possibility is a great draw. Ditch a land, draw 2 cards. Cool. Micromancer, that's another great draw. I can just immediately pick up the removal for the amplifier with that, because we didn't draw our +2/-2 yet. Oh yeah. Definitely the play. Let's play my land first, just in case they have taxing counter spells. Flowstone that amplifier. Worst case scenario, we're still getting rid of a shore up here, and we're still up a card since Micromancer drew that as an additional card. But no, looks like we're just doing super well right now. We have a flash creature. Sure, there's 1 or 2. Nope, just kill our 3/3, gain some life, sure. No 7 power hastes in the format as far as I remember. Another land from our opponent. Ooh, Essence Scatter. Beautiful. They're down to 4. 1 more turn and they are dead. So that's Soaring Drake. Here's the scatter so that we can keep lethal on board. Otherwise, we just hit for 3 next turn. And there's the concession from our opponent. Very, very good blue-red deck from them. Started on the play with the turn 2 Balmor as well. But luckily enough for us, we did have our board wipe to play out that controlling role in the late game. Get very far ahead with it. And, yeah. Really excellent game for us. Again, their deck is awesome. They built it super well. They got the double Balmor as well. Double Protect as well with the Sacred Peaks to actually kick it, potentially. I guess no, we only saw the 1 Protect. We didn't see the other one. Maybe played around the counterspell for the board wipe a little too aggressively, but because I played around it so much, it allowed me to wait until they had that Tolarian Terror on board, so in the grand scheme of things, it actually played pretty well that I waited so long on the board wipe. So, yeah, everything kind of just worked out perfectly for us there, and we get to maintain that undefeated record at 4-0 heading into Game 5. Time for Game 5 with our beautiful controlling hand. We are on the draw here. The scatter with 2 ways to bounce a thing is really nice. But again, I don't even know if we want to use the scatter early when we have the firestorm coming up. If they come out too aggressive, we've got the geyser to slow them down, but looks like we're probably just chilling here. They are a green-based domain deck, so the essence scatter is going to be a really big deal. Later in the game, against their big Vortuck Bone Rattle style 2-for-1 plays. Certainly don't want to bounce the Rager. I wouldn't mind just drawing a card off of the Aether Channeler here, and then trading it off into the 2-2 body. But I can take a few hits with Firestorm in hand. So we'll go to 18. Splatter Goblin, sure. Does not do much. It's a Phyrexian Espionage for us. Anything they play turn 5 should be Firestormable, so I think we're espionaging here. If I espionage here, I do have to discard a card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'd go to 8 cards in hand. How greedy am I? Do I care that much I'm gonna have to ditch something? I kinda do. I'm a real greedy Gus. Wario is the character that I relate with the most from the whole Mario universe. Vine Shaper Prodigy. That is a solid 2-for-1 little draw spell here. We can still just let them draw the card and then Firestorm everybody else. It's fine. They resolve a big threat next turn, then I just bounce it to scatter it later. Yeah. Alright, resolve that. We storm these. Unfortunately, the Firestorm's not even that good this game, because 2 of their creatures have drawn them a card. So they're only really down 1 card here. Firestorm's clearing out Splatter Goblin, but these both drew a card. It's almost like a 1-for-1, honestly. Because of that, is there any world where I can just not do it here? Now I have the mana to espionage and still hold up a scatter or Fires of Victory, or I can just pass holding up a Fires of Victory. I'm gonna espionage here. So Balmor. 7 mana before I can actually protect the Balmor with the phasing ability. So that's 2 turns. Like, I don't think I'm going to scatter anything here, but I also don't want to put Balmor on the board. So I have to discard something here. I guess we're discarding the mountain. All right, beautiful. This will be perfectly fine now. They still got a full grip. 6 cards in hand over there. Now plays like Vortuck Bone Rattle can come in hot. Unfortunately, 1 mana away from Firestorm plus Scatter here. But I have not missed a land drop this game, so just didn't have time. If we were on the play, then if I didn't discard the land, we could be on land 7 at the point where we cast the board wipe so that we can hold up the scatter for like a post-combat Vortuck Bone Rattle. Okay, Baltuvian Atrocity is Bone Rattle's little friend, which is still great with good enter the battlefield effects like Phyrexian Rager, but they do have to sack whatever they reanimate. With Vortuck, they get to keep whatever they reanimate. So Atrocity is still pretty bad for us, and I would have scattered it had I had the mana up. Okay, I can hold up a scatter plus fires or infusion. Menace and 3 toughness is a bad combination for me here. Like, I have to Fires of Victory, but I don't want to unkick Fires of Victory, but I kind of have to. Because I don't think I can Fires and not hold up an Essence Scatter. So it's going to be an unkicked Fires of Victory for 2 mana. I'd like to also have Scatter and Infusion up, so 2 for that, 2 for that, 1 for this. 6 lands. I mean, I could do a 1 mana thing at that point. I guess if I play Balmor, I can still Fires and Scatter. I just don't get Scatter plus Infusion. Yeah, this is fine. Should probably Fires the Victory right now, just in case they have the plus X, where X is their domain trick to try to kill me with. Well, I guess what we do is we take the 2 damage and just... Okay, well, this is going to be so simple then. If they have double Lightning Strike, then GG. But otherwise, I think we have a pretty good lock. If they were just going to try to combat trick hit us there with the Menace card. They've got double Lightning Strike, they've got double Lightning Strike. But again, anything else, we're actually super safe. Iconoclast, Trample Haste. Full control, respond to its ability with infusion probably. Oh, yeah, I guess Combat Trick super kills me. They've got Combat Trick. But this way I get to save Scatter for something that I can't infusion. Yeah, that was a little bold. That was maybe the wrong play, because I was playing around a Combat Trick earlier, and then that's super bad to the Combat Trick. But hey. Channeler that back to their hands. And we're very slowly starting to chip at them and hoping they never draw another Lightning Strike. Maybe we can mill them out if I bounce that enough times. It'd be funny. Yeah, they milled a Lightning Strike. Let's go. Let's go. I do have a Black Source in the deck, so I don't think I'm going to Vortex. There's an Impulse. All right, I don't have a white source to ever gain life off Geyser, so we are just slowing them down with it. If they have a haster, I've got Vortex or Scatter here, so we are sending the whole team in. Slam dunk that Scatter. 1 mana, Tolarian Terror seems decent. This doesn't give haste, does it? Just trample. Just trample. Alright. Yep, then we just hold our mana up rather than doing any extra damage. And they are definitely dead next turn. Quirion Beastcaller. It's a pretty good one, but no immediate threat, no ETB effect or anything like that. Soul Tender for +1/+1 counter. Bone Splinters destroy this. They have to pay the 2 ward, and I can't save it. I can Impulse and see if that'll get me anywhere. Oh boy. Rip-a-roo, opponent. Impulse OP. Please nerf. And there you go. 5-0. Here we are now for game 6. It's a mono blue hand, but we did say when we were building this deck, this is just a great example of blue-based control. So we've got our blue base. Playing against another blue deck. Blue-black. That is like the most controlling of the blue decks. It's got a bunch of blue counterspells and card draw and a bunch of black removal. Blue-white tends to put like a good wide board state of creatures out and play that tempo control role. Blue-red puts just a couple really aggressive creatures out and plays tempo control. I think I will scatter here to counter the 2-for-1. The 2/2 body that chips at us and the card draw that it provides them with, and we will slam dunk a Phyrexian Espionage, digging for those red sources. And there they are. Rona, Sheoldred's Faithful, a 3/4 that's going to make us lose life kind of slowly over time. Card's fine. With Tolarian Terror in hand, I'm pretty happy to just be dumping spells in my grave here, so I'm just going to geyser that to slow them down. They'll have to just recast it next turn. And most importantly, Terror is cheap enough that we can cast Terror and hold up a Shore Up for it next turn. That is certainly our line. Shore Up's going to be really big against the blue-black. Alright. Give them a little card draw here, Killing Lookout with Infusion, but it is the scarier threat right now. I won't be able to attack into the Battlefly Swarm yet, but that's fine. Micromancer can solve that problem. I guess I don't have the black source for Vortex, so not quite. Yeah, weirdly enough, maybe we were supposed to infuse the Swarm instead of the bigger flyer. This is definitely the more defensive way to do it. What 1-drops we got left in the deck? It's just Rona's Vortex, right? Rona's Vortex, a Shore Up, and a Timely Interference. Okay, Timely Interference does it. So because I have a Timely Interference... Okay, the only way I get to play Terror and Impulse and hold up Shore Up is if I Impulse pre-Terror. So I'm going to do that. If I find a Timely Interference, then I can just treat the Battlefly Swarm as if it doesn't exist, because if they ever block and try to give Death Touch, I just make it a 0/1, and it doesn't Death Touch. So, yeah, Micromancer for Timely Interference is going to be incredible. So we get to play the Terror this turn, and the next turn, the Micromancer makes sure that the Terror can actually just attack. Vohar, that's a very nice card. Draw a card, discard a card every turn to set up their draws. It's also going to drain me for life whenever they discard an instant or sorcery. And they can sacrifice it to flashback an instant or sorcery from grave. Very cool. Very strong card. Okay. We are on Micromancer for Timely. Timely does have a good kicker, so I could wait on casting it to have the kicker up. Ooh. Urtai Scorn the Micromancer. That's rude. Well, they don't have the black source up this turn then, so I get 5 damage in. Yeah, nothing I can do about that. Shoot. I think my internet's fine right now, but it seems since the arena update, game has been running kind of slow on every click. Hopefully just for the very start of the update. That's a problem, right? Whenever you cast a blue permanent, draw a card. Yeah, that's a massive problem. A lot of card draw. I don't think I can wait for the black source for Vortex. I think I have to just bounce the Defiler to slow them down and force them to recast it again next turn. 23 cards in deck. Yeah, I have a single black source in this deck. There's no way I can just wait. Slow that thing down. Otherwise, they're casting a Rona and drawing a card next turn. Now it's 2 more turns before they do that. There's timely interference. And they're tapped out of doing anything about it. I could save this to try to force them to block with Defiler later, but I can also just force them to block with Battlefly Swarm to get it out of the way. They don't have any removal spells in their grave for the Vohar. Yeah, no, let's make sure the Terror is going to keep forcing chumps from our opponent by getting the Death Toucher out of here. Wow, Arena's really going through it. Or my internet. Who knows? Oh, there's the black source. Mine. Well, I can kick a Phyrexian Espionage next turn then. That'll still be a pretty good use of it. Yeah, because if I Espionage right now, I don't have the mana for Scatter anyway. If I draw into one. So we'll just kick Espionage next turn. Crystal Grotto, scry 1. To the top it goes. There's Defiler of Dreams. So I've still got Fires of Victory I can draw into. I got the Temporal Firestorm, the Jaya's Fire Nado. Ideally, we just top deck one because I think they're all too expensive to do after a kicked Espionage. I don't think I'm going to not kick Espionage. Dang. All right. Oh, all right. Well, bad draws are bad. Got rid of a tribute to Urborg so they can keep the Rona and draw a card off Defiler next turn. They have no good blocks for this, so we put them to 10. I'm going to reboot Arena after this game. This is getting ridiculous. Here comes Rona, plus they draw a card. Surprised they paid the 2 life, because they don't have to pay the 2 to draw the card. Maybe their other spell is 4 mana, the one that they scried to the top. Okay, it is. That makes sense then. And Defiler of Dreams is already running away with this game, because we did not have the interaction at the right time for it. It's already a 4/3 flyer plus draw 2, even if I kill it now. Well, I get to kill it now, but again, it has already done a lot of work getting our opponent super far ahead. Eight life, Balmor, 16, 2 cards in hand. I can try to cheese out a Balmor shore up victory with Tolarian Terror. But if they just double block Terror on this attack, that's not a thing in the first place. I feel like at this point I need something really impactful. Like a 2-for-1 removal kind of play, such as a Temporal Firestorm or a Fires of Victory. Actually, I don't even think I can attack in here, because if they block with Rona and Lookout, even with Shore Up, that's really bad. Like, I would kill both of them, but Rona can get recast from the grave, and Lookout draws them a card when it dies. So it's just not a profitable trade. So if we just hold, we're only taking 3 damage a turn, and that gives us time to find a Fires of Victory, or this gets to find Rona's Vortex. I counter with Shore Up. Fires of Victory, or ideally, the whole board wipe would be the best. Okay, they just find their own Shore Up. So now Fires of Victory sucks, because Shore Up only costs 1 mana, so that's really easy to hold up for the rest of the game. So now it just has to be Jaya's Immolating Inferno. Okay, Impulse, very big. In the top 4th of our deck, then we'll find the Inferno. I want to reboot Arena so badly right now, but let's just finish this game first. I get so impatient with the tapping. Temporal Firestorm is the name. It's a completely different card. Oh, this sucks so bad. How is it like our 4 best draws? I guess Essence Scatter doesn't count, but the Terrors and the Firestorm are all incredible, and now they're all going to go to the bottom. Oh, it's on auto decide the bottom order? Oh, shoot. Great. It put the Terrors after the Scatter. Okay, I need to change that in this format. Gotta go to your gameplay settings. Where do I change that? Thought it would be in gameplay settings. Maybe it's on account? Preferences? Nope. I should be able to order them myself instead of this auto order. I don't know. It's supposed to be a setting to let me actually order them manually. Let's see if they have a counterspell for Firestorm. If they do, we can move on. If they don't, And this is how we get ahead here. All right, they're digging. Draw a card, discard a card, hope for the counter. They did not find it. Beautiful. They do still get their Talus Lookout card draw. Raid's Frightful Return. Turn a creature from grave to hand, get their bomb rare. Get ready to start drawing a bunch of cards again? No, Battlefly Swarm. They live in fear of the terror. Hello, Battlewing Mystic. Goodbye, Shore Up. Man. Yeah, I guess. I actually don't think I attack in here either. I probably should have just pre-combated the Mystic at that rate. To see what we draw. Although even if it was removal for Battlefly Swarm, we don't get to attack in because of the Shore Up. If it's removal for Battlefly Swarm, the plan is still going to be to start attacking with Mystic. Ah. Second non-token non-permanent. If they don't, they lose 2 and they draw a card. Okay. So they get to sack a creature to lose 2 and draw a card. Or to make us lose 2 and draw a card. Oh no, they don't have to sack something. Okay, cool. So they just draw the card. Nice. Super cool artwork. But I do not remember the card super well. That tells me you've got a lot of Essence Scatters in hand, and I should not let that resolve. I mean, no, you always would just Geyser the Terror, but it's only 1 mana. I mean, they probably have more Essence Scatters and stuff. I'm just going to shore up this. They need 1 mana removal for the Terror now to get through the Ward 2 in response to that. Cool. Talus Lookout. Beautiful. I mean, they just scatter this, but... Yep. Now our next Battling Mystic can resolve, maybe. Really wish things were not auto-ordering, but I don't know how to change that because it's not in the settings. It's not on the in-game settings. I might have to do it on the main menu screen. But yeah, if we were manually setting these up, our late game could be real good. Well, we'd still have this chunk of lands. It'd be Balmore, Shore Up, Land, Terror, Scatter. They've still got the Shore Up, so Fires of Victory is not going to resolve and draw me the card. Although they've got the Gibbering Barricade too. I feel like I have to just do it right now, because it's not going to resolve either way. And at least this way I force them to blow the Shore Up. I should have stopped playing lands there. Playing lands helps if I top deck Battlewing Mystic, but it's bad if I top deck Fires of Victory, because this only does 1 damage, but I only need to do 1 damage to kill the Battlefly Swarm, so... We get rid of the Shore Up, and then we're in a top deck war. But they have the better board states. Yep. And they get to start poking me for 2 a turn. Okay, so if I know the bottom cards here, I know Balmore's not near the top, neither of the Terrors are, the Shore Up isn't, 2 of the islands aren't. So what is in these top 5 cards? Battlewing Mystic, Aether Channeler? Battlewing Mystic, Aether Channeler, and 3 lands. Alright. Doesn't feel like great odds then. Battlewing Mystic being basically our only good draw. Tributary, certainly not. Now that I've used Fires of Victory, there's nothing in my deck that cares about having more cards in hand, so we just play the land. Well, that is a very strong card. That's dead on board. Oh my god, I can't even concede right now. Come on, Arena. What is going on? There we go. Good lord. Ooh. I guess that's technically 1 damage off lethal. We go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on their next attack. But yeah, we're out of outs. I draw one of these 3 cards, which is a sorcery speed creature or a land. I go to 1 life and then definitely lose the game from there. All right. All right, here we are for game 7. We are 5-1. We were on a 5-0 undefeated streak into an excruciatingly long loss in the kind of controlling mirror. Well, that is the red source for the Battlewing, but I'm fairly certain we just play it out as a threat here. I have rebooted Arena, but it seems like it just wants to be slow today, which is awkward. I did go ahead and do a speed test as well as just like try running some YouTube videos and live streams and stuff, and it's something weird going on with Arena on my end, not my internet in general, which just makes it all the more frustrating. I assume it's probably not everybody on Arena right now. Just me for some reason. Go, Mystic, go! We just hold up Impulse. When you have the instant speed card draw, even if it's less mana efficient, when you've got the instant speed counterspell to go with it, you should probably hold that up. It gives you a lot more flexible uses of your mana. It gives you that oh shoot button if they play a really good creature. A 3/3 with no abilities is not a really good creature. Valerian Terror is. Flowstone Infusion. You can espionage holding up the infusion, not the scatter. Or I can just pass. I really want to make sure that I'm playing spells and getting them engraved for the Tolarian Terror. So I think I'm going to espionage hold up infusion. I should have espionaged without playing the land yet. Then I could have chosen between playing an island or a mountain depending on what I drew. Alright, doesn't matter. We were still just going to hold up red for infusion. Cool. Micromancer's looking a little awkward here. No, we did dump Rona's Vortex on the bottom. So we can still pick that up. Or a shore up. Or a timely interference. Yeah, no, we still have good stuff for Micromancer. It's just that the Flowstone Infusion is like the best pickup for it. Dang. I have like 2 different 4-drops. I'm 1 land away from playing a 4-drop and holding up a scatter. But I can play one of these on hold up the infusion. Talus Lookout. Alright, we're not holding up the infusion, we're playing it. Go ahead and draw your card. We're getting that out of the sky so I can keep sending in with Mystic. Probably Micromancer into the shore up so that when we play Terror, that is at the ready. It's also perfectly mana efficient, holding up the final blue. They get to resolve anything turn 5, but from then on we can start holding Scatter up. The Terror is going to be cheap enough, and the Lookout's going to be cheap enough that once we hit our 6th land, we can keep playing threats and holding up Scatter. Cool. Aether Channeler is not bad at all. Now if they do resolve a good threat, I still get to hold up. Well, not hold up. I still get to scatter it because I channel it back to their hand. Three for 3/3, my friend. You know what? No. We're winning this race. If we just crack back with our Micromancer. I've got every color but white. Another Talus Lookout. That's pretty annoying, because that's definitely a lot better to counter than trade off with. Ooh, but I've got the Aether Channeler to bounce it here to counter it next turn. The Balmor to get a ton of damage in the future. Yeah, so next turn we scatter. After that we Balmor shore up. Everybody has trample and maybe even lethal them. They're down to 9 now. Yep, recast Lookout. Here's the scatter. And they've got 1 green mana up. That should pretty much be game. Off of Balmor shore up to trample over for lethal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I put them to 1 if they don't have anything else here. Because Micromancer tramples for 2, the other 2 creatures hit for 3 each. So it's not quite lethal. If they attack, it is. Does seem like they have a 1 green mana spell, because they were holding there. So they could have the +4/+4, the trick based on the domain. This is still definitely worth the attack, because we still break through for 6. Alright, they just concede to the Balmor. More than fair enough. We are 6-1 now, heading into what could be the final battle. We only need 1 more win to leave this event with max prizes, and we've got 2 shots at it as we head into that final boss. Super controlling hand here for this final battle, but looks like a pretty great one. We are a blue-based control deck, and this does all the things you want to do with the Impulse and the Essence Scatter together. The Impulse probably digging for a threat, so we can actually start chipping away while we counter all their nonsense. This is a perfectly reasonable opening hand. We are going to be on the draw here. Our opponent has taken 1 mulligan. And here we go. Turn 1, it is a Sunlit Marsh from our opponent. That is a black-white dual land, so they can be any combination of those colors, or they could even be running it just to up domain in a green build. White, black, and blue so far. The Fires of Victory, an excellent draw here. So we can kill one of their resolved threats and go up a card in the exchange. Wooded Ridgeline, yep, it is the 5-color domain build again. It's kind of a shame how good blue control is against 5-color domain stuff, because I'm really not giving a good showing to these 5-color domain decks today. Even though they're my favorite archetype in the format, and they are genuinely very strong. They don't look it when they hit their worst matchup, and I feel like we're not their worst matchup, we're one of their worst matchups. I would say blue-red and white-black are the best decks at fighting that domain stuff. But any streamlined 2-color deck can have a fair enough matchup. It's just once they get to the late game, so many huge 2-for-1s. Just crazy stuff. Bog Badger, hello 3-3, welcome to the board. I will Fires of Victory you. So I really don't mind. I'm going to go ahead and cycle Timely Interference just to draw a card, and most importantly to get Tolarian Terror to be a little cheaper later in the game. Find a Battlewing Mystic. Okay. Could put a threat on this board, but in doing so I'm giving up on the draw 2 of the Mystic later in the game. Gonna go really rude and really irritating here probably, and just pass. I don't know. 7 cards in hand, no guarantee we draw the 5th land. Probably best to play Mystic, but I'm being a greedy Wario again. Because playing the Mystic, we still get to hold up an S and scatter, and then if we don't have to scatter anything here, we've still done something with our mana. If I don't hit land 5, that's going to be really bad, because land 5 is essential to being able to Espionage and hold up scatter, or to Fires of Victory, the Resolved Badger, any of that kind of stuff. So this is certainly the very greedy way to play it out. I suppose worst case scenario, if I don't draw the land, I can Espionage and hope to draw it in the next 2 from there. Idyllic Beachfront. They already had full domain, but they have even fuller domain now. That actually resolves, because I can infuse that if they don't have a combat trick, and if they do have a combat trick, I can Fires of Victory it if I draw land here. And even if I don't, I can Fires of Victory without drawing the card. Root Wall is scary enough when they have the domain to make it a 7/7 that it's worth not getting the 2 for 1. Uh-oh. Arena, please tell me you... There we go. Rona's Vortex is the draw, so we didn't hit the land, so I need to Espionage, and there needs to be a land in the top 2. Or I have to pass turn here. "16 lands in this deck. So there's 12 left out of 26. It's almost a coin flip on each. I get 2 coin flips. They both have to be tails to get punished here. And even so, yeah, I've got a backup plan. Even if I get punished and they resolve a big threat, I can bounce it with Vortex and counter it next turn. The only issue is if they play like a big threat with a great enter the battlefield effect. Oh, man. All right. You do what you gotta do to me, Arena. I think Mystic is just such a late play. I'm just going to ditch that. They have exactly Bortuck Bone Rattle. I think we kind of just lose if we don't find our board wipe. They get the Root Walla and the Bone Rattle on board. Okay, that doesn't matter at all. Just a 2/2 flyer. In fact, I can just do this too. I'm super fine with it. Alright, well, that was so much less scary than it could have been. Oh man, really? I gotta do this again? I mean, if I fail again, I still just play a Tolarian Terror for 1 mana. God, Arena better work next time I record. This was supposed to be a 3 draft recording session, but I'm gonna stop after this one if Arena keeps being this slow right now. Alright, beautiful. Actually, really beautiful, because now if I don't Essence Scatter, I've got the Impulse as well. And then, yeah, Tolarian Terrors for 1 mana all day long to easily hold up my other instants, my Scatters and Fires, and this is just beautiful. Down to 15. Badger certainly resolves. The kicker just for fun. Give everybody menace even though they already attacked. Cute. Land. They only have 2 cards left in hand. Here's Impulse. Finding another 1 mana terror. I wouldn't mind more lands, but 1 mana 5/5s are pretty good, so I'm going to go with that. And we find a land anyway. I can drop 2 1 mana Tolarian Terrors and still have 2 Essence Scatters up. Oh, card is so good. I do not need to kill anything on board to be ahead now. 2 5/5s beats a 3/3 and a 2/2, even if the 2/2 has flying. We're definitely outracing them. That is one pretty big flyer. I'll counter that. Oh no, Balmor kills them so fast. They take 10 now, and then next turn I just trample over. No matter how much they block, we're just going to trample for lethal off of Balmor. Nice little 2-turn kill very easily. I'm going to hold up Scatter here. Just be 100% confident we find the win. And this should be spectacular. You know what I think a better line would have been? I could have Micromancered and still held up Scatter so that I could find a Shore Up so they can't, like, remove one of these terrors. So that I'm holding up Shore Up or Essence Scatter, because I don't actually have to attack with Balmor to kill them. I just need to play Balmor and follow it up with a spell or two to give trample to the terrors. So I could have just played Balmor next turn. Played the Micromancer now. Yeah, that would have played around the Citizen's Rest here and killed them a turn faster, but since they have the Citizen's Rest, they're not quite gonna die yet. Yeah, that was a misplay. Micromancer for Shore Up was definitely the play. I could still kill them next turn, potentially. Just make these add up to 10 power and make sure they have no blockers up by killing one now and one with Channeler. But now it's definitely more difficult than if I had 2 5/5s. Okay, if they attack with both of these, then it's not going to be hard at all to kill them. Because any creature they play for a blocker, I counter. Yeah, okay. It's going to be easy lethal next turn. Unless they have instant speed interaction like Citizen's Rest to respond to me grabbing a Shore Up. Oh no. I can just top deck the Shore Up, and I don't even have to grab it. If they have any instant speed interaction, they kind of have to respond to the fires. Well, let's just double Shore Up. More damage. Okay, if they had a response, they would have done it then, so. Mega lethal. And that is 7-1, a full trophy run for our first draft of the Return to Dominaria United. As I said during the drafting, love the set. So much great stuff to do in it. Pretty much all the two-color archetypes being viable, but there's also a lot of splashing you can choose to do with the excellent fixing in the format and the off-color kicker abilities and the domain mechanic. There's a lot of really fun stuff going on in the set. This is actually going to be a pretty fun one to hop back into for drafts throughout the week. We can probably play a pretty different deck each time, although I do imagine we'll be playing a few different domain decks because when every two-color green deck ends up turning into domain mush, that means that it's like, even if I technically go like green-black, I'm going to be like a 5-color domain mush pile, and then I do another draft where I'm green-blue, I'm going to be another 5-color green domain pile. So we'll probably play multiple green-based domain decks throughout the week, but multiple other great two-color archetypes like this blue-red control deck. Super sweet stuff today. And again, very, very excited to play some more of this excellent format. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. And other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.